Welcome back to another DPS analytic video. This is going to be the 4th week for the Temple of Ahn'Qiraj for Season of Discovery. Looking at all percentiles first, we now have the Balanced Druid in first, followed by the Affliction Lock, Assassination Rogue, and then the BM Hunter. The BM Hunter has went down a spot, and the Assassination Rogue has went up a spot. And then the same thing for the Balanced Druid and the Affliction Warlock, they have now swapped ranks. Shadow Priest taking the position of the Frost Mage, which the Frost Mage has now moved down 3 or 4 spots compared to last week. Ellie Shaman moved back up toward the middle of the pack. And then the Fire Mage, Ret Pally, Fury Warrior, and Feral Druid still performing a little bit below average compared to previous phases. Moving on to max percentile, we will see that the Balanced Druid has now taken the first place spot by a pretty comfortable margin. Followed by that, it's a pretty bricked off second place, pretty much all tied around the same amount of points. Assassination Rogue, followed by the Feral Druid, Affliction Lock, and then the Fire Mage. Last week we had the Affliction Lock, followed by the Balanced Druid and Assassination Rogue for the first 3 spots. Now we're seeing a huge jump from the Balanced Druid compared to other rankings. After that, the Ellie Shaman still performing incredibly well. Fury Warrior, Ret Paladin, and Frost Mage still competing for that middle of the pack DPS. And then the classes that are still underperforming are the Enhanced Shaman and Destruction Lock, followed by the Combat Rogue. Looking at 95th percentile, we will see that the Balanced Druid has taken the position of the Affliction Lock, and then the Assassination Rogue still in the same position as last week as well. Followed by the Demo Lock, which has a bunch of classes very close right behind them. Shadow Priest moving up a good bit of positions, and the same thing for the Frost Mage as well. And then looking at the top performers for each fight, specifically for Scarum, it's currently the Ellie Shaman. Compared to last week, this is a lot closer compared to when the Marksman Hunter was miles ahead of everything else. We now have the Ellie Shaman in front. Next, we have the Bug Trio, Balanced Druid, and the Fire Mage completely dominating this fight, pretty comfortably ahead of everything else. Followed by that, we have the Feral Druid and Assassination Rogue sitting pretty comfortably in those top 4 spots. Next, we have Battleguard Sartora. The Ellie Shaman is starting to rise back up again. We've seen this week 1, and now they're starting to scale harder with the gear that they've received. And we're starting to see a trend with the Fire Mage starting to catch back up on certain encounters, but the Frost Mage is just super strong at the moment. Even with the gear that the Fire Mages are acquiring, they're still not yet able to beat the Frost Mage on some of these encounters. Moving on to Fankrus, we have the Balanced Druid in first, followed by the Fury Warrior and then the Melee Hunter. Melee Hunter wasn't really in the top 5 spots for the past couple of weeks. The only fight where they really performed well was Cthulhu, so this is interesting to see that they are starting to really make a name for themselves. Feral Druid, always very reliable on single target bursty fights, and the same thing for the Assassination Rogue. Moving on to Princess Huhuran, we have the Assassination Rogue proving exactly what I just said, single target bursty fights, and then the Balanced Druid making a name for themselves as well this phase, just completely outperforming everything else by a pretty healthy margin. Next we have the Twin Emperor encounter, completely blown out of the water by the Feral Druid at the moment by around 1,300 DPS. Sitting pretty comfortably in the second place spot is the Fury Warrior, followed by the Fire Mage. And we're starting to see a trend. We're seeing this Melee Hunter start to show up on not just 1, but 3 fights now. Moving on to Oro, pretty much dominated by your caster or ranged DPS like your Hunters. Sub Rogue and Assassination Rogue seem to be the only melee DPS that are starting to compete. Fury Warrior starting to catch up, but still performing a lot lower than the casters are on this fight. Balanced Druid just super far ahead on this encounter as well by a pretty healthy 200 DPS. And then finally we have Cthulhu. Is it going to be the Melee Hunter again? Not this week, but they still are pretty close to that top 5 DPS. Balanced Druid once again on top, followed by the Feral Druid and the Fire Mage. In 4th place we have the Affliction Lock, followed by the Assassination Rogue. And then to close out this video, looking at the max percentile once again, the Balanced Druid just super competitive on every single fight this phase, skilling incredibly well with gear and just outperforming every other spec. And that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos just like this one. Comment down below what you'd like to see next. And as always, I will see you in the next video.